Hi everybody, it's Marcus Collins.
I'm just going to go first.
All right.
It's Marcus Collins, Danny Fleming
Of the MA Properties Online team. And welcome to our market update for Arlington. So, hello everybody and welcome. So, shall we fire off?
Well, before we do, look, if you have any questions throughout any of this, please send them. I'm going to be watching the laptop. And if any questions come through, we'll try and answer them for you as soon as possible. As soon as I can break in to anything that he says.
Oh, right, okay.
He'll break into me.
Yes,
yeah, okay.
Yes,
anyway, let's get going.
All
yeah.
right.
So we're the MA Properties Online team. We have 8 agents in the team and 5 full-time support folks. And we have our dog in the middle.
Who's barking previously, so
yes,
maybe he will continuously throughout this presentation. Because we're doing this from home, as you can imagine.
And he also has a series himself called Pseudo the Canine Super Sleuth, and you can find
more on that later.
Yes, that's right.
More on that later.
So what the agenda is today is we're going to talk about smart decisions. We're going to go over the stats of what's happening in the Arlington market, both before COVID kicked in and what we were predicting, and since COVID has kicked in and what's happening. Then we're going to talk about selling in 2020 in the time of COVID, and also buying in 2020 in the time of COVID. So
with that,
let's get going. Marcus talks first for a while, so I'll just sort of sit here and listen.
Quietly? No, you won't.
No, I won't. No, it's not going to be quietly. Sorry.
No. Okay, so smart decisions, information-based approach. So let's talk about the characteristics of the local market. So, but before we get down into Arlington, I thought it's useful to kind of give us a sense of the big picture here, because unsurprisingly, there's a lot going on right now, and that has wide implications for what's happening in the housing market today, as well as what's going to happen with the housing market rest of 2020 and of course into 2021. With a global pandemic, a global recession where we are today, and clearly in that, and that looking like it's going to continue all the way through to well into 2021. We have the Black Lives Matter movement going on. We have an election in less than 100 days, 94 days, wow. I think it was, which will go really quickly, as you can imagine. And then, thinking about the way we are economically, Congress still talking about economic relief, at least the next tranche of economic relief. So an awful lot of uncertainty in the market. So we'll try and weave our way in terms of what's happened in the Arlington market, as well as where we think the rest of the year and to some extent 2021 will take us. But as you can see, given that uncertainty, 2021, let's see. What's interesting though, even though we've gone through all of this for the last, I guess March, April, May, June, July, 5 months. Gosh, seems like a long time, doesn't it? Oh, yeah. The housing market in Arlington has fared very well. And you'll see that in a moment. So let's take a look at the market summary, where we were at the end of last year, in January this year, essentially. The shape of that curve is a schematic of what actually happened with the economy, although the dip we saw in 2009 in comparison to 2005 was very small in Arlington. You almost can't see the so-called crash in the data for the town. A little bit of a kind of stop, then back up it went. So we've seen a 63% increase in house prices since the prior peak in the market back in 2005. So that's a sizable increase, with a median sale price in 2019 of $821 for single family, about $600 for condominiums. And it's interesting, just to give you kind of one more stat on that one, because it's interesting to see about the juxtaposition of an Arlington versus Lexington or Winchester. The median sale price in those towns, Lexington and Winchester, about 1.2, 1.3 million. So considerably higher, and that has implications for one of the reasons why the housing market in Arlington is so strong. So, inventory levels. Interesting to look at those, because you can see in that the kind of cyclic nature of the real estate market. With the dips in the winter, basically. You can also see the spring and fall market, as it turns out. But what's really interesting about this graph, and it's the number of homes that are available to buy on the first of the month. So every month I go out and say how many homes are available to buy. I've been doing this for well over a decade now. And you can see a relatively sharp drop in that 2011, 2012 timeframe. That's when the buyers came out of almost en masse out of the woodwork and said, hey, the recession is behind me, forward looking, time to get into the housing market. As you can see, it took a couple of years in Arlington for it to really kick off. In other towns, it started in 2012. So Arlington got a bit of a jump on this as first-time home buyers jumped into the market back in 2012. In most other towns, it was 12 months later. But there's a definite drop in the number of available homes in that kind of 12, 13 time frame. Again, consequence of buyers thinking, you know what, I need to jump back in the market. Then if we fast forward now to 2019 and second half of the latter part of 18 and 2019, you can see a rise in the inventory levels, significant rise in the inventory levels. That's a consequence of the thought that there was coming, we've been talking about this all through 2019, an economic downturn of some sort. And that did influence the market in terms of the number of homes that came on the market and the number that sold. Talking about the number that sold, this is the Arlington market sales. Peak in 15, a slight drop, but you can see relatively static around about that 275, 280, between 280 and 300 actually. Homes relatively static, even though we had a peak in 15. So nothing substantial in that one. Some other towns have seen a definite decline, but Arlington relatively static in terms of the number of homes, even though we did see a slight increase in that inventory levels. So a little bit more inventory coming on, static number of buyers. Median price, as I said, 821. You can see that it rose steadily from 2010. Took something of a flattening in 2018 and 19, and that's a consequence of more inventory coming on and there not necessarily being quite as much of competition, therefore the bidding wars for homes. Condominiums, their price 617, just same as single family, a kind of steady rise in terms of that price too. So given that, what's happening, big picture, with the exception of this year, I'll talk more about that, but why is the Arlington market so strong? To really understand that, we need to take a look at some demographics. This is actually from 2015. Hopefully we'll get new ones pretty soon, I would hope. Hopefully, we all filled in our forms back in April, so hopefully we'll get some more data. But what this shows is the number of people that are in each age bracket.
Men and females.
Yep, males and females, young to old.
Yep.
Two bumps on that, which are important. I'll kind of highlight those. That higher bump, the higher age bracket bump, is the baby boomers, the babies born after World War II, who are now getting to retirement and therefore thinking about downsizing. The lower bracket there is the first-time home buyers, the millennials, if you will. And of course, they're beginning to think about their first home. And when you think about Arlington, its situation, the average sale price, 821, 617 for condominiums, that's much lower than the surrounding towns. So somebody in a Winchester or a Lexington looking to downsize, Arlington's a great destination. Relatively close by, so they don't lose their circle of friends. Close to Boston, vibrant town, lots of restaurants when they reopen next year. So it's got kind of everything for those downsizers. Also got everything for the first-time home buyers. Good transportation to Cambridge and Boston, as well as good school systems, vibrant town, relatively affordable in comparison to the towns that are around.
I was going to jump in.
No,
You see the
go,
evil eye?
No, it wasn't evil eye. Go for it. I knew you were going to jump in.
What I was going to say is we're talking about Arlington specifically this evening, but if you've got any interest in, say, for instance, Lexington, because you've mentioned Lexington a couple of times, we actually did a seminar last night, and you can find it on YouTube or Facebook or Twitch, and that goes through Lexington's data specifically. So
now we're focused on Arlington, but also on Monday, been a long week already. It's Wednesday.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Monday, I also did a deep dive, if you like, in terms of the Lexington and Arlington market, looking specifically at year to date as well as July. So there's lots of information. If you go poke around our website, you will find all of those live streams, which became videos to have a look at. So Arlington finds itself very much in that kind of, not quite a perfect storm, but kind of a perfect situation where downsizers like the town as well as first-time home buyers, and that's what's been driving the prices up. And the desirability of the town is these two groups both competing for the town. So that was where we were, I should say, in 2019. And in early 2020, January in fact, we wrote an Arlington market review. Well, I don't know what we're going to say in the Arlington Market Review 2020. I've no idea.
We do.
I'm not even. We will do it. We always do it every year. But I'm just kind of, what are we going to talk about? It'll be an interesting one to
and if you live in Arlington, you would have had it delivered into your mailbox, because we deliver it to every mailbox in Arlington. So you'll get one at the beginning of 2021.
Yeah, 2021. Yes.
Yeah. Which is getting closer.
Closer.
I don't want winter to come, but that's okay.
I thought it was useful to talk a little bit about what we were predicting in January, even though we've had this very different situation really between late March now until July and coming into August. The big picture view of this in terms of the way the Arlington market was going to behave, what we predicted for 2020, realistically late 2020 now. Some of it may well pan out. So I thought it'd be useful to kind of give you a sense of this, because as we were writing this, all the discussion, all the talk was about clearly economic uncertainty. That was the thought. We knew the election was coming in November, and we knew there was a lot going on, and there was this perception that there was going to be some economic uncertainty. And so as we go back to January and say this will have it'll become more interesting when we look about what's going to happen in the rest of 2020 and 2021. What we said is that we were going to see more sellers in the market because of that economic uncertainty. Sellers thinking perhaps the peak is now, or perhaps I've even slightly missed the peak. Therefore, I need to put my home on the market, because from now on it's going to a downward in terms of prices, or it's static in terms of prices. A relatively static number of buyers. We saw that with an increased inventory in late 18 and all of 19. Same number of sales. We've got a static number of buyers in the market. I think that may be a little bit different this year. We've seen a number of buyers coming in. Talk a little bit more about that in a minute. And therefore, we predicted it would trend to a more balanced market. And I think once we get through what we've been through, and we are coming out of it, I think that will kind of play out. Mortgage interest rates, clearly nothing. And then price appreciation really being static. And that's actually turned out to be the case throughout 2020, even with the pandemic. It's risen about 2%. So we haven't seen any drop because of the pandemic, but we haven't seen any sharp rise, even though the last 8 weeks or so have been a little bit crazy when it came to the housing market, with a lot of buyers coming into the market.
Yep. So
let me kind of give you a sense of what happened this year, first of all, and kind of what we mean by back to normal. Are we getting back to normal? I guess we are. This graph shows the number of tests is the grey line, and the orange line is the number of confirmed cases. We have, if you like to use that term, we used a lot of. We haven't used much of it lately. Kind of flattened that curve. Slight uptick if you look in the 7-day average, and this is the data through the end of July. So a slight uptick as we begin to open up, but nothing like, of course, that we've seen in other states. So Massachusetts is faring very well, and that brings confidence to buyers, which is key. If you're a seller in this market, you want confidence in the buyer community, because that means the house will sell. So the shape of that curve and the shape of the curve of the number of people who died because of COVID is kind of the same way. So that's bringing a lot of confidence back into the market, and specifically in terms of the buyers, and therefore the seller confidence will come along with that. In terms of the number of listings, it's interesting. The blue bar here is 2019. The orange bar is 2020. As you can see, in January and February, the number of listings in 2020 exceeded 2019. If you remember back, we had a relatively mild winter. Seems like a long time ago.
It does. We'll take another mild winter.
We'll take another one too, actually, yes. But the early part of the year is really driven by the weather. If we have a harsh winter, cold and snow all the way into March, we tend to see fewer homes coming on the market in January, February and early March. Mild winter means homes start to come on earlier. March 1 through 15, the third set there was relatively in parity, and then we saw COVID kicked in March, second half of March, excuse me, and April, and then there was this big debate question of, is it going to be May, is it going to be June, when's it going to be? It turns out that it was May, and probably early May, I think is fair to say.
Yeah, but it's worth pointing out that the number of homes that came on the market late March and April dropped dramatically. I know we as a team, the last time we bought homes on the market was the last week in March, because even though the stay-at-home advisory had come into play mid-March, the buyers were still active. The buyers were still happening. Now we weren't doing open houses any longer, but the buyers were still making private showings on homes, and so there was still a lot of activity. We did we talked to all of the sellers that we had been planning to bring their home on the market in April and said, we just don't think that this is a good idea. We need to, there's just not going to be enough buyers out in April because everyone's starting to hunker down. But at that point in time, we had a couple of vacant homes on the market. So we had a pretty good sense, especially when we have agents in the team who are working with buyers as well. We had a pretty good sense that we would know when the buyer activity started increasing again. So we then started bringing homes on the market the first weekend in May. Even though the stay-at-home advisory hadn't been lifted yet, the buyers were out, and they were out in force. So that's why you're seeing in May the number of homes coming on the market in 2020 were fairly similar to what they came on in 2019.
And that continued, so in May, June, a little bit more in July. Overall, if you kind of show you the cumulative graph of this one, blue is 19, orange is 2020. You can see that we're still at that little bit behind. But realistically, it's about 20 homes. It's about 10% behind where we were in 2019. Remembering here, though, as I'm comparing 19 to 20, we did anticipate more homes would come on the market in 2020 because of that thought that there is this economic downturn, or this perception of it, and so we anticipated more homes would come on the market in 2020 than it did in 19. But having said that, we're kind of there or thereabouts. So in terms of what we see through the rest of the year. We anticipate we'll see a few more homes coming on the market August, September. The question for us is, I think, will we see, this is the conversation around which we did a couple of weeks ago, I think, is should we bring a home on the market in 2020, fall 2020, or wait till 2021?
Now.
I think because, as I talked about the kind of big picture, none of those things I mentioned there are going to disappear, apart from the election, I guess. That is going to get behind us. Everything else is going to continue all the way through into 2021. So there's a high degree of uncertainty. And right now, it would appear that the buyers are feeling confident because of the shape of that curve, that Massachusetts is weathering this very well. There is if it starts to rise, we've already been warned, if you will, that the restrictions will begin to be brought back down. So it looks like Massachusetts is going to kind of come through this far better than many parts of the United States. And that's bringing that confidence, which means more buyers. And then, here's the question. Do you bring your home on the market in 2020? Yes. Or do you wait till 2021? There's a lot of uncertainty in terms of what will happen specifically in that.
But on the ground, the buyers are out. We bought a home on the market on Coolidge in Arlington 2 weekends ago, and it had 19 offers on the home. It's sold. We've got 3 more homes coming on the market next weekend. We anticipate that from everything that we're seeing, there will still be activity and there'll still be buyers out there. Now, this is... the last 10 years, we have a typical seasonal you can pretty well, you know what's going to happen each period of time in each season. This year, it's complete chaos. So, chaos, no, it's not chaos. It's more, there's upheaval.
There was. I think we're getting back to a more...
But where I'm meaning is we don't know really. But I would advise, normally August is very, very quiet. People don't bring homes on the market. But with the number of buyers out there, it makes sense to bring the homes on the market with the number of buyers still
and if for no other reason, normally we would not bring homes on the market in August because everybody's on vacation. Yeah. Realistically, there's only so much, there's many people clearly are not. So, that kind of everybody disappears.
Yeah.
Tends not to be the case this year as well. So that's another reason why we will probably see more homes coming on in that August and then September timeframe.
And it's also too that the fact that typically normal seasonality, we see at the beginning of August not many homes coming on the market because most buyers need a mortgage. And a lot of buyers are buying to get their kids into the school system that typically starts, late August. Well, if they haven't bought by the beginning of August, they're probably not going to be able to get a mortgage and close by end of August. Well, now that the school system is actually not starting until mid-September, they've got that additional amount of time. So I think that's going to help August sales as well. So it's just really because we're busy agents, we are bringing homes on the market and we know what's going on. So we'll be monitoring this on a weekly basis to see where we are with the number of buyers. But I anticipate we'll see more coming on. Yep.
So condominiums, a kind of mixed picture. If you looked at these graphs of condominiums, it doesn't look like COVID kicked in at all until May, which is kind of interesting. Very different from what we saw with the single family. And by the way, that single family graph, if you do the same graph and we have for Winchester and Lexington, the single family in Arlington looks exactly the same as the profile of it, the same as Lexington, the same as Winchester. Condominiums is a little bit different. Turns out that any effect, if there even was an effect, and I'm not sure there was, actually kicked in that May timeframe where we had a lot less listings in May. But then fast forward to July, we saw a lot more listings coming in. So if you do the cumulative on this one, we're at parity.
Yeah.
We've had some kind of ups and downs, but we're basically at parity with what we anticipated or what we saw in 2019. And so if you think about the projections, this is, basically in order to match 19, we have to keep the same number coming on the market. It's highly likely that number will increase just because a lot of buyer confidence, people can see that, we can see that, and therefore we'll see more listings coming on the market. So this graph, it's a little outdated, I think, and for next month I want to update it a little, but if you kind of fast forward now to June, July,
but it's good for explaining how things changed.
True.
Over time.
Let me go through and I'll tell you how I would change it as we kind of move forward now. What this does show, if you look historically, open houses stopped the second week of March. That was really it. After that, we really didn't have any open houses at all. And therefore, the buyers were starting to shift from, I'll just go and see an open house and see what it's like, to I'll look at the photographs, I'll look at the video, I'll look at the 3D tour, I'll look at anything I can to decide whether that's a home I'm interested in. And once I've done that, then I'll make a private showing. Yeah. That's kind of how the buyer shifted, I guess they pivoted, that would be the word of the day. They pivoted from, go in to see an open house, because why not, straight away into doing everything online. Yeah. The open houses are back. Although we have more to talk about later, they're not back in the same way that we anticipate. Primarily because there are restrictions on how many people can be in a home at any given time. As we were doing the seminars last night, Danny reminded me that a home we brought on the market, I think it was in February, we had 100 groups through that home on a Saturday, on a Sunday, I think it was.
It was 100 on the Saturday, 50 on the Sunday.
That's not going to happen today, given that each group has been given 10 minutes. Each group is in the house on their own. And so, you just can't, physically, you can't get that many people through the home. And so the open houses are very restrictive, and Danny's going to talk more about why we think today anyway, as thinking from a seller's perspective, doing an open house, wrong approach. Let the private showings kick in, and that's why, as I look at this graph, looking at the number of private showings you were talking about, for Coolidge in Arlington, other homes as well, much higher than we've seen previously. And I think I would take that private showing line, the green line, and bump it up significantly.
Right. Well, and we can talk about it now, because it sort of doesn't make sense to say, well, we'll talk about it later.
Okay,
Let's talk
sure.
about it
Go
now.
for it.
So, what our advice to our sellers is that there is way too much risk in having an open house. There's just way too much risk. And we're not talking about a health risk, although there is that as well. We're talking about a risk of turning buyers off the home. Because as you were describing, let's say we have 30 buyer groups all turned up at the open house. Well, you really can't let those 30 buyer groups in the home at the same time, because then the buyers are going to get comfortable, and we'll tell you a story about that in a second. But so you have to monitor how many people go in. Now, if you've got a buyer who's come to see the home and they're still standing outside an hour later waiting to get in the home, right, which happens if you monitor, if you're only letting people in at a time and you just get a whole flurry all at once, they are going to walk away in disgust and turn off that home completely. So you have the risk of turning buyers off your home purely and simply because you're having an open house. Most of the serious buyers have an agent. They have an agent. It is far better off to allow that buyer gets in to see the home with their agent at any point in time, rather than a short 2-hour window for open houses. You really can do a lot of damage, and we know this when we talk. We have agent meetings each week where we're sitting down with the agents in the team, and what are they experiencing, what are they seeing. And even just on Monday, we had one of the agents in our team who told us that they'd been to an open house with their buyers. The agent outside was sort of monitoring things, but not really monitoring things, getting their details and then letting them go in. And they said when they went in, they were really uncomfortable because there was about 5 or 6 groups on the main floor of buyers. And then when they tried to go upstairs, there were groups of buyers in every bedroom and every bathroom, and they felt so uncomfortable, they just left. Those buyers are dismissing that house. Immediately, they're dismissing that house. So from the perspective of open houses, you can do far more damage by having one. Now, those serious buyers that we were talking about, and talking about the private showings, we had a home that we bought on the market a couple of weeks ago, and it had 82 private showings in the 4 days that it was on the market. Now, it started at 8 a.m. and finished at about 7 p.m. that night with no, but we don't allow overlapping showings. And the buyers and the agents worked with when they could get into the home. So the buyers get in to see a home when it's a private showing, absolutely, if there's no open houses. So,
but they may not if it's an open house, because they may just say, if you think about
they give up
30 groups,
yep,
10 minutes, that's 300 minutes. A normal open house is 2 hours or 120 minutes. So
yep,
there's a lot of people who are going to be very upset. You're going to get basically 12 groups through there, if you're lucky.
And they're going to get annoyed if someone's in the house and they're taking 20 minutes.
Right.
Right. And it's just so dangerous. There's so much risk involved in having a public open house at this point in time. We're just not doing them. Okay. What?
Well, no, I'm good. I was waiting for you to finish. Okay, so that was how showings kind of played out. And I think it's fair to say that will continue throughout this year anyway. There was this thought maybe it will change as we move forward, but I just don't see this changing. We'll see about spring 2021, but I really don't see the situation that you just described, Danny, changing anytime in 2020. So I say our recommendation today, don't do open houses. They're self-defeating in many respects, and allow people to do those private showings.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to change until there's a vaccine, and the buyers and the agents feel comfortable mixing around other people. I just don't think it's going to change.
So, quick turn our attention a little bit to the future, the economic future. It was interesting, this diagram was put out many months ago by McKinsey, looking at all the different scenarios, which one was likely, which one was not likely. Is it going to be a U-shaped? Is it going to be a V-shaped? Is it kind of going to get peaks and troughs? Lots of different scenarios. And what was clear from that, in order for us to pull out of this quickly, we had to get everything right. It's pretty clear we didn't get everything right. We don't just have to look at the disparity between where we here are in the Northeast and what's going in Florida, Texas, even California for that matter. So clearly we didn't get everything right. So it looks very much that U-shaped is the way we're going to go. The US economy is predominantly service-based as opposed to manufacturing-based. Manufacturing economies come back very quickly, service-based less so. And so it is going to it's going to hit the economy it is beginning to hit the economy. And we haven't seen the end of it. The thought that, yes, we're coming out of this may be, but I think the economic implications are going to be much wider. But having said that, there is some confidence clearly in our buyers as they see that curve. Because, yes, many of us can work from home, and we spend probably half our time working from home.
We only just really started going back into our office
A
mornings,
month ago,
we just go in mornings, and there's only a few people, a couple of people from our office, from our team that are in there. So the confidence is starting to build.
It is, but I think it's fair to say that many small businesses just simply aren't going to survive this. I mean, it's pretty tough. I mean, the PPP loan got you so far. That's probably run out for most organisations. At least as best we can see today, it's going to be a while before more money comes through, and so many small businesses are not going to survive. And this thing's here for the long term. There is, be under no illusions, it's not going to disappear anytime soon. It really is. Is it the end of the year? Is it the middle of 2021? That seems to me to be the open question. It'd be nice to have some clarity on that. And I think that would be once we can get some clarity on when we anticipate that vaccine kicking in at scale, because clearly you can have it, but we need to administer it to 150 million people probably. Once we can get that at scale, I think that's when the confidence will come back. But the economic recession will, kind of carry on through that. So we're not through this by the long shot, and that's where the uncertainty in 2021 comes along. That's for sure.
And that's why when we talk about do you sell in 2020 or do you sell in 2021, we know without an iota of doubt the buyers are out there right now, and there's not as much inventory as they would like. We just don't know what 2021 is going to look like.
We always pride ourselves on predicting, look at the data and then predict. But it's hard to look at the data just because there's been so much going on and actually make that prediction. I gave you, what we said in January. I think that will begin to play out as more people bring their homes on the market. But in terms of are the buyers going to kind of continue through the first half of 2021? That for me is the one that I can't quite get a handle on yet.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah.
In terms of financing, interest rates are very, very low at the moment, so that's a good thing. But the banks are beginning, to tighten some of that lending, be a little bit more cautious. Also hear that a large number of people, unsurprisingly, are starting to refi, given those low interest rates. And so we've seen more issues today in the last 4 months, if you will, with financing than we've seen for a long time. Around appraisals, we've got more to talk about those in a minute, but also just the timeliness of getting things done, the fact that banks are asking not for one appraisal but asking for two. So there are some issues in terms of the financing. Yes, the interest rates are low, but you just have to be patient with the banks right now. They are taking a little bit longer to get things done and being a little bit more cautious because, as we're saying it's difficult to predict what 2021 is going to do, they're thinking it's difficult to predict what 2021 can bring, and therefore I don't want to be exposed to that. So, we'll see how that kind of plays out, I think, over the next few months or so. In terms of what happened in terms of major events, it's quite interesting that if you look back at the data for the stock market, it crashed in mid-February, about 4-5 weeks before we actually had the lockdown. What that did, because higher priced or buyers buying higher priced homes had some considerable wealth in the stock market, they saw that wealth begin to decline by upwards of 30-40%, albeit kind of transient to some extent. And that affected the higher priced homes. Didn't affect the Arlington market, if you will, that kind of $600, $700, $800, $1,000. It really was the higher priced homes that were affected by this.
Although we had a $700,000 home that the buyers pulled
they
out
did,
because
didn't they?
of the
Yes.
stock market crash.
They did, yes.
And we had a more expensive home where the buyers pulled out because
Time
of the
will
stock
tell
market
whether that was
crash.
a good move or not. I suspect it was not. My advice at the time was it's not a good move, and actually it wasn't a good move to exit at that point, because when the house subsequently sells, it will sell probably for more than it actually sold for last time. So then we got the lockdown, the shelter in place in mid-March, and that had a much wider impact. And we did see the situation where many buyers were exiting. Not so much anymore, and we did see the situation there were a lot more home inspections going on. That's beginning to change as buyer confidence kicks in, as more buyers kick into the market. So less exiting, and it's not entirely unheard of. Some of it for finance reasons, clearly, as we talked about, appraisals and that. But also home inspections less and less are common now. Still there though, so they haven't disappeared completely. That's for sure.
Well, it's when we talk about home inspections. Typically, if we see over 5 offers on a home, we would say we're probably getting 50% of the offers coming in with no inspection contingency. So the more offers you have on a home, the more no inspection contingencies you get. Yep. If you're negotiating on a home, if the home's been on the market for 2, 3, 4 weeks, 2, 3, 4 months, then there's absolutely 100% an inspection on the home.
Right.
And the inspections have been quite contentious this year. I don't know whether it's
not sure what's going on.
This whole emotional trauma that people are at home, they're not sure what's going on. We're sort of hearing that this is going on in quite a few different areas.
And we've seen it as well. We've seen it that people in their home with the children, everybody's trying to work from home, kids out of school. That brings a lot of stress, and inevitably that stress kind of bleeds over into the housing transaction,
just into
the buying and transaction, too. Right? Yeah. Buying and selling transaction for that matter. Yeah. And that's one reason. Home inspections. The negotiation after home inspection was always contentious, but I think this year it's been more contentious than normal. Yeah. Certainly our experience.
So it's a really good idea to price realistically
and not have a home inspection. That's clear,
just
right?
A word of word.
That's clear. That's absolutely clear. We shouldn't do that, right? If you can get your home on the market, get competition, avoid the home inspection, it makes the transaction much simpler. Doesn't necessarily avoid the financing issues, but at least it gets the home inspection out of the way.
Well, it does help avoid the financing issues a little bit, because if you've had 8 offers on a home, the appraiser knows that there was competition for that home to sell at that price. So there's not much,
That's
they
brave
can't really,
talk,
all right,
Brave talk. We've seen more appraisal issues this year.
We haven't. As a listing team, we haven't.
We have seen more appraisal issues this year overall than we've seen probably in the last 5 years.
Yes.
And I'll talk a little more later on. We talk about the buying side, why that's the case. But they're definitely we have seen those. They should get less and less, but we definitely have seen those. That's for sure. And in terms of buyers and sellers, what they're thinking. I mean, there's kind of 2 schools of thought here. From both buyers and sellers. Should I list in 2020 or should I wait till 2021? And the buyer's saying exactly the same thing. Should I buy now to get it, in many cases, to get it out of the way? Because who knows what 2021 will bring. On the other hand, they're saying, maybe I should wait till 2021 because there's more homes on the market. Maybe there'll be more chance to get a bargain, if that's even possible. So
I can talk to a seller an hour ago, and that particular seller will say, I think I'm going to wait until 2021 because I think the market's going to be better. And then I'll tell it to a seller, 5 minutes ago, and that seller says exactly the opposite. I'm going to sell now because we don't know what 2021 is going to bring.
Right.
So there's a whole lot of uncertainty from people as to whether they should sell now or 2021, which is why we did a
Sell now
seminar.
or wait till 2021?
Yeah, we did that, and we talked about, should you sell now or should you wait until 2021? You should sell now. It's far safer. But
Less risk.
There's a blog post on our website that goes through that whole session. So if you're interested, then check the blog post.
Okay, this is the end of my section. Was it my section or your section? I have no idea. All right, so enough of the stats. What does selling in 2020 look like, Danny? Let me in on the secrets.
So first off, there are 5 keys. We in a normal seminar that we run, physical seminars, things like this, we talk about the fact that there are 5 keys to selling. So there are 5 keys to selling and getting the highest price for your home. The smart decisions component was what we had covered just in the first section here. Preparation is really important. Staging is really important. The marketing component is important. And then having a team that their job is to get you the highest price for your home. They're all different components of getting the highest price. And we'll go through some of these and how they're impacted in COVID times. So first off, in COVID times, in general, this is what's happening and what we're doing and what's going on. We're just not doing open houses. We talked about that a little while ago. There's too much risk of losing the buyers by doing them. The buyers who have their agents, the serious buyers, have their agents. They will get into the house without any issues at all if there's no open house. They will. We're not doing physical feature sheets at the moment. We stopped doing physical feature sheets about the middle of March because we had people coming into the open houses and not wanting to touch them, not wanting to take them from us. So, there was that concern about the virus staying on hard surfaces and things. So we're not doing physical feature sheets. We are doing virtual feature sheets, and we point buyers to those virtual assets on our website, on MLS, and all those types of things. All of our marketing is virtual. Actually, we do print marketing as well from the perspective of, the newspapers and things like that. But all of the marketing about a home is virtual. And that's a 3D tour, that's videos, that's websites, that's floor plans. All of those components are virtual, and what the buyers are absolutely 100%. They are looking at those digital assets to decide whether they want to go and see a home or not. And we'll talk a little bit later about the correlation between the virtual views versus private showings versus offers on a home. We'll give you some stats on those. But as an example, just 7 weeks ago, I had a buyer who was really interested in a home, and they contacted me and said, do they have virtual, do they have a video, do they have a 3D tour? Let me check with the agent, because there was nothing on MLS. No, they didn't have anything. And the buyer just sort of said, you know what, we're not willing to risk our health to go in and see a home where we don't even know whether it's going to meet our needs, because there was no floor plan either. There was just nothing. So they were not willing to risk their health to just go in and see a home blind, without knowing beforehand if it could meet their needs. So I ended up, because they didn't have anything, I ended up doing a Zoom call with them while I was in the house and showing them the home. And it met their needs. I got them in for a private showing the next day, and we ended up buying it. So that just sort of shows they wouldn't have gone in to even see the home to buy it except for the fact that I'd taken them in and did a virtual showing. So it makes sense to have a 3D tour, the video, the website, everything, so that the buyers have that immediately at their disposal. Normally, with Massachusetts is a voluntary disclosure state. You don't have to disclose in Massachusetts. We would recommend you do a seller's disclosure in this period of time, only because in pre-COVID times, back in our old normal, a buyer might be able to get in to see a home 3 or 4 times from the Thursday the home comes on the market to reviewing offers on the Tuesday. And we should clarify, that is typically the marketing time for a home. It's coming on the market on Thursday, reviewing offers on Tuesday. If you've priced realistically, we've done all the marketing, we've presented the home to the buyers, we will get offers on the Tuesday. So typically in pre-COVID times, the buyers would have had maybe 3 or 4 days or 3 or 4 opportunities to get in and see the home with their contractors, with their inspectors, those sorts of things. During COVID times, it's not as easy for them. So to give the buyers a little bit more warm and fuzzies when they're making an offer on the home and they haven't been into it as often as they would normally, we would recommend doing a seller's disclosure. As we talked about, the buyer's behavior is to look at the home virtually and then make a private showing. And closings are all being done virtually now. Even the registry had closed down, but the attorneys were still able to e-file the information that's needed. What we mean here by buyer confidence returns, this is the phase in that graph that we showed you before. Previously we had lockdown phase, what impact the different things that weren't covered in general, what the impact was. Now that we're in the buyer confidence returns phase, we have vacant homes and we have occupied homes. They're slightly different, but they are I have to say, this is from the beginning of May, and we're now the beginning of August. We're starting to see things being almost similar now. But when this was beginning to ramp back up again, the preparation phase, the preparation component of getting the highest price for your home, contractors were absolutely fine getting into a vacant home. And sometimes the paint, we'll talk about this later, paint will give you the highest return on investment, period. So it was quite important to get some contractors into some homes, and for vacant homes it was a no-brainer, it was easy. We were able to fully stage homes because it was easy. Our employees, they weren't at risk by going into the home and fully staging the home. And the showings were a little bit easier than for occupied homes. They were less restricted. You could have, 5 people in a family going into a home versus in an occupied home, maybe you didn't want to have 5 people going into the home. But now when we talk about the buyer confidence returning in an occupied home, as we note there, the preparation of the home, contractors are progressively willing to go into homes now. It has been a gradual progression, but we're pretty well seeing contractors going in and painters going in, and the homeowners being comfortable having contractors in the home, because it's not just that the contractors, their comfort level, it's also the owners and the people who live in the home, what their comfort level has been. And staging, we staged an occupied home today, so that comfort level has increased dramatically. We do ask that the sellers are actually out of the home while we're staging, but this is a whole lot of different as to where it was a couple of months ago. Showings progressively less restricted. when it's an occupied home, because typically when we talk about an occupied home, we're not talking about the sellers physically being in the home during the showings, but buyers were less comfortable going into a home if they knew it was occupied, even if the sellers weren't there during their showing. But that's now easing quite a bit. So let's talk a little bit about the next phase, which is preparation. Preparation is, as I mentioned before, paint. There are certain things that give us a great return on investment. So we want to try and get those, sort of talk to a seller about what can work for them. But it's really, no one answer fits all. We can't really sort of say, well, everyone should do X, Y, and Z, because every house is different. And we come in and we talk to you about what we would recommend doing. One of the things that we don't recommend doing is doing major renovations unless you're going to be in the home for a period of time afterwards. Because major renovations, and when we talk about major renovations, we're talking about a new kitchen, new bathrooms, finishing a basement, things like that. They're just not worth the effort and the money and the time to do those. There are other things that you can do that will get a better return on investment and less hassle and less stress. But if you're going to be living in the home for 2 years, 3 years, put the new kitchen in now for yourself.
So you enjoy it.
Yeah, so you enjoy it. We typically say don't finish a basement if, just for the buyers. But if your family can use the basement, finish the basement, absolutely. Then you get the use of it for the next 3 years, and then the buyers will, pay money for those. So we'll give you advice on the highest return on investment tasks. We'll also give you advice on the priority order of doing things. Some of the things will get less return as you sort of go down start from here. There are some things that you'll get a great return on investment, and there are some things that you'll get a return on investment, but not as high as these ones. So we start slotting those down for you, and then it's your choice as to when you stop or how you stop, or just do the first one. We'll also give you advice on projects not worth doing. I went into a home about 3 months ago, and they were saying that they were going to get insulation. Going to put insulation all over the home so that the buyers, would be excited about that. So,
that doesn't make me excited. Just say it.
It doesn't. So.
Even me, it doesn't make me excited. Even me.
So we'll give you advice on the projects that don't make sense doing.
Don't do anything that's hidden behind a wall.
Yeah, I mean it's
number one.
Yeah. So now our preparation services, we have. It depends on how a seller wants us to help them. It ranges from, we can give you the names of contractors that are really responsive, do a great job, are cost effective, those types of things, and you can call them and get them in to do quotes. Or, as a seller told me a couple of months ago, they wanted to be an interested observer.
That works for me.
That's great. So we organised the contractors.
That's what I want to do when I'm working, just like observe other people working. I love it. Every now and again, just go, do that instead.
So anyway, so we organised the contractors to come in, and we met the contractors at the house and gave them what we were wanting quotes on. We sent the quotes off to the sellers. They chose one of the quotes, or this is how it can work, that they choose one of the quotes. Then the contractors start. We organise the dates for the contractors to be in there. Then we'll turn up every so often, make sure that they're still on task and that they're doing everything correctly, and we'll oversee the project in conjunction with the seller. So you can have nothing, we'll give you names, or we'll just do concierge service. concierge service
Do everything
level.
for you.
Yeah. So you decide what level of assistance that you want. So here's a couple of examples. Here's the home wallpaper. Taking the wallpaper down and just paint. There are buyers. I heard a phrase at one point in time where someone said that the odds of a buyer going into a wallpaper store and choosing the same wallpaper as the seller has chosen, you could win the lotto multiple times.
About the same odds.
Yeah, so it's
14 million or something, isn't it?
So anyway, wallpaper, if you've got wallpaper, it would be a really good idea to take the wallpaper down. So some folks have got strong colours in their, whether it be their dining room or bedrooms, things like this. The buyers really respond to neutral colours. So if you're going to paint because it's in rough shape or, we want to paint neutral colours. And we have a whole array of paint colours that the buyers respond well to. It's actually on our website. If you go to menu on the top right hand side, then you will see under sellers, they're paint colour palettes. So they're all colours that the buyers are really responding to at the moment. Here's a kitchen where a lot of folks don't realise that you can paint kitchen cabinets. So the buyers would like new construction. They would like new construction, and new construction is doing white kitchens, off-white kitchens. So if we paint the darker wood or the wood cabinetry a white colour, an off-white colour, it makes it feel really fresh and really, okay. Now we didn't do anything with the appliances, as you can see, but we painted the cabinetry. We did replace the floor, or recommend to replace the floor, only because it was a bit torn up in a few places. But we're not going to get you to do anything that doesn't make sense and doesn't get you a good return on investment. This home was one on College Ave. And
That's where I remember it from. Yeah, I remember.
And
I remember.
I think we had something like 12 offers on the home, and paint was the major thing that we had done there. Here's another one where you can see the kitchen cabinets have had paint on them. And that's all we did in this kitchen. The appliances are the same, the countertops are the same, we just painted. We should have painted the light fixture, but that's okay. That one had 17 offers on it and sold for way over asking. What a lot of folks don't realise is that you can actually paint tiles. In a bathroom where you'll have dated tiles that really do date the bathroom, and the buyers walk into it and they think, oh, to buy this home we're going to have to redo the bathroom before we even move in. Well, if you just put paint on them, and the paint that we're talking about, a Benjamin Moore Cellar bonding primer, and you put the bonding primer on the paint and then paint over it.
Bonding primer on the tile.
Oh, sorry, what did I say?
Paint. Bonding primer on the tile.
Oh, yeah, bonding primer on the tile, and then paint on top.
Yep.
And in this one, we had wallpaper on the walls. But when you look at the difference, we did nothing else in this bathroom. Nothing else. The buyers would walk into this bathroom and they would say, we can just move into this house. We don't need to do anything.
Yet. Maybe they'll do it later on.
They might do it in 5 years' time.
Right.
But with the original tiles and original wallpaper and things, they're talking that they need to renovate the bathroom immediately, which factors into the price that they're willing to pay for the home. Because if they have to plan to renovate the bathroom before they even move in, they need money to be able to do that. So they're not as willing to pay as much for the home as they would with just move-in condition. Here's another one where you can see that the tiles were the blue, but here's the laminate counters and vanity. Look, it paints up just as well. And here you've got your painted tiles. So it really does. This is quite a dated vanity when you look at this. This is a dated vanity. It doesn't look like a dated vanity so much in this example. It makes a huge difference. Here's another one where this was a home we bought on the market in Belmont, where the tiles were a bit dated. Have a look here. The laminate counters were in rough shape, and the cabinets were sort of a little bit rough shape. But again, we actually painted the laminate counters, again with the bonding primer used. And this bathroom, sure, it's still dated, but it feels fresher, and the buyers felt that they could just move in to the home when they came in. It's not just inside though. Here's an example of some outside. This home had been a for sale by owner. Then it had been on the market for over a year with another agent. Then it was a for sale by owner again, and then they listed with us. So what we did is...
Did you sell it?
Yeah, we had competing offers. Yes, we did. We had competing offers. I was going to get to that. But we took the shrubbery, which looked really sad, but we just got them to paint the trim, because this was a purpley pink trim with a blue siding. It didn't look fantastic. But guess what? With white paint on the trim, it pops. It popped. Again, we had competing offers for the home and sold it way over asking. Landscaping is also important too, because if you look at this home, you can, not only doesn't it look attractive, but there's no light coming in through those lower windows at all. So the dark was the rooms were quite dark inside. It was really dark. Yeah, but we got them to take the trees down, and we put in new fresh trees. Remember what I mentioned before? I mentioned before that buyers would love to buy new construction. Well, new construction typically has new young plants. So just from the view of this home, you know, the marketing photos of the home, they're thinking, "Ooh, this is pretty new." Whereas here, this isn't a new home. This is, you know, 20, 30 years old just by the size of the trees.
The trees, right? Yeah.
Yeah, this is a new home. And again, we had competing offers on the home. It's all about the presentation to the buyers. And part of that we get into with staging. It's a combination of preparation and staging that makes the home, it gives the buyers a visceral feel when they're looking at the home and they think, we need to buy this home. Most buyers don't know who to call if a room needs painting. They don't know who painters are. They have no idea what sort of costs are involved in taking down wallpaper and painting. We once had someone who came into an open house that we did, and there was wallpaper on the walls because we'd gotten them to take an awful lot of other wallpaper down, but the wallpaper that we left was a fairly subtle wallpaper. And a buyer and his wife walked in and they sort of said, they looked at everything, and I asked them, you know, can I ask what's wrong with this wallpaper? And this chap said, yeah, no, this is something my grandma'd have. And I sort of said, okay, well, you know, it wouldn't cost much to take it down and paint it, get someone in. And he looked around, and this was a living room, a dining room, and a hallway. And he looked around and he said, yeah, this would cost me about $20,000. No. It would cost maybe $2,000. And he said, yeah, you're just trying to sell me the home. So the buyers don't have any understanding of how much some of these things would cost, and they don't know who to call. So that's the key component with being move-in condition. Now, when we talk about staging, here's some stats that from different areas. 83%, and this is from NAR, National Association of Realtors, 83% of buyers agents said a staged home helped buyers visualize the home as a future home. And we'll show you some examples about that in a minute. But here's another one from NAR. 25% of buyers agents said potential buyers increased their offer between 1 and 5% on a staged home. Now, even if you're talking about
800,000, right?
800,000 as being the average price in Arlington, 1%, you're talking about $8,000. 5%, you're talking about $40,000, just because of staging. And we see this all the time. But 85% of homes surveyed were sold for 6 to 25% more than homes that were not staged. The stats back it up, and it's important. We have our own truck. There's the dog. But obviously this was in winter. I don't want winter to come back again.
Yeah, I don't mind winter.
I like summer.
Yeah, summer's okay.
I like summer.
Summer's okay, you're right.
But anyway, so we have our own truck, we have our own staging team, we have about 16 housefuls of furniture, much to Marcus's dismay.
Yes.
So
it's currently filled our office right now. Yeah. Can't get in, you can navigate around it.
Because it's been so buoyant this year, in this latter part of the year, all of our homes, we've only got a couple of homes that are still on the market that are quite a high price, which that's a little bit slower. But everything else has sold, and our staging, our warehouse is getting quite full.
Everything came back. So list your home in September.
Yeah, because we've got
clear out my office.
So it's probably worth. We can talk about what we charge for it in a minute. But our staging services, we'll do a virtual consultation. Our staging coordinator will either do a FaceTime or use a video, things like this, ask you to send a video, and she'll do a virtual consultation with you. The only normally she does personal visits, but she does have severe asthma, so we're trying to protect her health and just have her do things virtually at the moment. And it's working really, really well. After the visit, she comes with a summary of what she talked about with you and what she recommends you do. It's depersonalize and declutter is a great beginning, because when you think about it, when we talk about it as advanced packing, because when you are selling, you got to pack anyway, so you may as well pack now, pack a lot of the things away to depersonalize the home, because it's very hard. We want a buyer to walk into your home and imagine they can live in your home. Very hard for that buyer to imagine that if they can see evidence of who the seller is that lives there. Photos, diplomas on the wall, tchotchkes around the place, things like that. It's very hard for a buyer to imagine themselves living in the home if they can see you. And when they walk in the door and they get a positive visceral feel, then we're on great track for making that happen. So it's done by our in-house professional staging team. And the staging furniture and accessories is based on need, because we don't expect you to empty your house so that we can bring a house full of furniture in. We're not going to do that. If it's a vacant home, we'll bring a house full of furniture in. But most homes are occupied. Most homes, people are living in the home. But as we're walking around, and things, your home, or in that virtual consultation, if you're talking about the dining room table and the dining room set is broken and you really can't sit it in anymore, you're going to toss it before you leave, toss it now or donate it now, and we'll bring a dining room set in for that, because it's a lot easier to do that now than you've got 4 weeks from the offer. Let's say the buyers want to close in 4 weeks' time. It's a lot harder to do it then when you're under pressure to pack, and there's a little bit more sort of stress at that point. So if you want to get rid of furniture now, get rid of it now, and we'll bring in what you need. But it's also, things like rugs. Even if you've got a complete complement of furniture, rugs, matching lamps, soft furnishings, those things make a difference. as I was sort of saying, we're starting to progressively lift restrictions on staging occupied homes. We staged a home today that was occupied. Mentioned that I already mentioned that it creates an emotional response from the buyer. How much does it cost? Nothing. It doesn't cost anything. We invest our resources to help sell your home for the highest price. We do it as part of the standard fee that everyone charges. This is something that we do that is incorporated into the standard fee. Because it's why we do it, and people would wonder why we do it. We do it because it will sell your home for more money, it'll sell it quicker, and you'll tell your friends about us. I mean, I was talking to someone a couple of weeks ago. They have a 700 square foot condo in Arlington. It had been on the market for 4 months actually, not selling. And she paid over $2,000 just to stage the condo because she lives out of state. And anyway, and it hasn't worked, and it didn't sell, and she's out over $2,000 already.
Yeah.
So here's some examples. This was a home that was on the market, unsold with another agent. This is the living room. We came in with living room furniture, and actually the home was vacant. We came in with furniture. Actually, it wasn't vacant, it was sparsely furnished. But we came in and we had competing offers on the home. That makes a difference. Here's some new construction. And, the home was a stunning home. Here's the new construction. But here's where it looked, or how it looked with staging furniture in there. Now, this particular home was built with the Studio McGee design style. Okay, when it was time to stage it, Studio McGee design style, we did some investigating to find out what the Studio McGee design style is, and we didn't have some components of the furniture, so we went and bought them.
Is that what that table is with that?
Yes, that's
log thing.
It's sort of a log
thing
on top of legs, and this is a different type of. So anyway, what I was going with is we have about 16 housefuls of furniture, and we have different styles of furniture. So if your home's a traditional home, we have traditional furniture. If it's a contemporary, we have contemporary furniture. So we have the whole gamut. We have Studio McGee design style furniture too. And anyway, this home sold within 3 weeks, and it was a new construction, quite a high price point, and it sold within 3 weeks because it felt good. Here's an example. That one that I showed you before that had the
blue house
exterior with the
exterior
painted. This was the inside of the home. That was the family room. So we came in and staged the whole home. And here's another example of this same home. So when we say staging plays an important part, when a home is vacant, sometimes the buyers can't really work out how they would use a room. The furniture helps guide them as to what they can do with that layout. Often you'll sort of see buyers sort of thinking, well, how would I put my sofa to do this? How would I do that? We see those sorts of ponderings by buyers all the time when we're helping them buy homes that aren't staged. Here's and when you're reading MLS, an MLS remark, if it's a versatile floor plan or a unique floor plan or something like this, there's challenges with the floor plan, and they're that's the case. Here, this would have been described as a unique floor plan because the front door was over here, and this was the living room, clearly the living room. This was the dining room. You can see the dining room chandelier. And I can imagine the buyers were walking through and sort of saying, well, what do we do with this room? What's this room? Because it's not really obvious what you could do, because traditionally you don't have a living room, then a dining room and another room. So what we did, coming in and staging, we staged the front room as a living room, then the dining room, and this is the pre or post dinner drinks room, because we had a bar there. We set it up so that people could imagine themselves sitting with their guests before then going to dining. And again, as we mentioned, the home sold with competing offers, where they had been trying to sell it for about 18 months prior to that. Staging is huge. I can't really stress it enough. It's really important to stage a home to get the highest price. Now, let's get on to marketing. Marcus is going to talk for a few more minutes again.
Just a few more minutes.
Yeah.
So, marketing. Lots of components to marketing, clearly. Photographs, videos, 3D tours. I'll go through each of those in turn, I think, and show you kind of what each of those components are. But, does it matter? I mean, that's kind of the key thing, right? Does it actually matter in terms of getting the highest price and selling quickly? As we've mentioned a number of times, all of that, virtually viewing that home is key to getting that higher price, because it gets people in. And we can show this, and we will, at the end, we'll show you some real data in terms of this, but we can see a direct correlation between the number of views of the website and the 3D tour to the number of private showings, and then a direct correlation from the number of private showings to the number of offers. So as you see a lot more private views of the virtual assets, if you will, the 3D tour and video, that inevitably equates to more private showings, which inevitably equates to more offers. And guess what? The more offers you get, the highest price you will get. So marketing does matter. It's always mattered, there's no question, but it matters even more in this environment where buyers are looking at everything they can virtually, then they're looking at the home. Whereas before, sometimes they would just go to the open house to have a look. So today, marketing matters even more than it did previously. And it mattered before as well, clearly. Photography sells, no question about that, of course. Here's a contemporary home there, as well as a somewhat older home. Some of those richer colors. People often ask, does an older home, is it going to be difficult to sell? And actually, in many cases, no. Just because you can see from that lower photograph there, the colors come out very rich. This was, I think, done in the fall as well. So you've got the great colors outside as well as those colors inside, and they photograph beautifully. Does photography matter? Well, take a look at these photos. I shouldn't add that these are not our listing photographs, but not ours. But this is the same kitchen. And if you look at the upper photograph, it's been staged as well. They've done everything they need to do. But what's let it down, of course, is the photography. That's what lets this whole thing down. And that's the shame of this, that you kind of done all the work. Danny talked about preparation, talked about staging. You've created a product that today's buyers want to buy. Don't then let it down by having poor marketing of that product. You've done all the hard work. The hard work, realistically, is in the preparation, is in the staging. The marketing is not that difficult to do, and it always saddens us when we see a home like the one you see in the upper photograph. They've done all the work, but then the marketing just simply lets it down. That's a real shame, and it's unnecessary. And we pride ourselves on having a high level and a broad range of marketing that we do for a home, and why wouldn't you? And talking about that, photography is one, but video is key. The way we consume content today is to a large extent on YouTube. And so when a buyer wants to buy a home, guess what? First place they will want to expect to see is video of that home. And it makes sense to do a number of different videos. I'll show you an example in a minute. We get our dog to go around the home with a GoPro on his back. Now, cute, yes, works beautifully on social media. Mm-hmm. So, you create content for the different platforms you're going to push it onto. So,
because the key thing is exposure.
Sure,
You've
absolutely.
got to get it out to as many people as possible.
Right, and we'll talk that in the end. It's about being broad in terms of getting it out there. So having a video that works on social media is key. Having a video that tells you about the top reasons people like this home. People like to understand why, why do you like this home? What's so special about this home? And they kind of want to see that, as well as the ordinary videos. But let me show you, because, this is all very well listening to me and Danny talk too much. Let's give you a sense of what that kind of video is like. So just, break the monotony of us talking. So here's and I'm going to talk over it, right? Of course. So here's the cute one that works beautifully on social media. So here we put a GoPro on the dog's back, get him to look around the home. That's kind of what we're looking to do here. So that's the video that very much works for say for social media. But then of course you want to put a video that works for the more traditional view. So this is the video of a home actually we sold earlier this year on Candia in Arlington, and as you can see, it's the more traditional view, better than a photograph, because it gives you kind of depth of it, gives you the flow of the home, so it's better than you would get from a photograph. But it's definitely the way people want to consume content today. So that's key in terms of doing that. So video is very important, but we can go one stage further than video, and that's particularly into the 3D tour. So let me jump across and show you the 3D tour, because this is really key, because we want the buyer to be in control of what they're doing. So let me jump over here, and here you can see, let's put this back up, here you can see a 3D tour actually of the same home. And let me put this in full screen mode if I can. There we go, that's better. Now here you can go anywhere you want in the home, and you, the buyer, you, the viewer of this, and therefore the potential buyer, are in control. So you can go look at all the different aspects. What does that room out there look like? That's the kind of entrance to the home. Here's the dining room with the sun coming in through the kitchen. It was in February.
It was a lovely day.
It was in February. Now you're in the kitchen. You can see all aspects of that kitchen. You can go downstairs. You can go upstairs. And when you think about buyers today, this has always been the case, but even more so today. Buyers today don't get that long in that home. They don't get an opportunity to go in there, as Daniel was saying before, 2 or 3 times. They may only get a single opportunity to go see this home. So what this allows them to do is spend as long as they want in the home. And they're in control. They're the director. The photographs, the video, we decide the order of those. But in this case, the buyer can go wherever they want to go in that home, and spend as long as they want in that home as well. This house had a first floor master. As well as that, if I can go to...
And can I just interrupt just one sec? We had a comment from Celia on here that she was saying, what do we mean by virtual assets? So,
what do we mean by virtual assets? So here's a great example of a virtual... Video is a virtual asset. I'm struggling with what word to use, to be honest. We've got digital assets, virtual assets, but essentially what we mean is website. That's a single point, and I'll show you one in a moment. A single point that kind of brings everything together that you view virtually. So a website together with photography, and then video. Multiple videos, as I said. This is a great tool as well. Something that you can look at online in the comfort of your own home. Be that here. We used to say that the 3D tour is wonderful if you're doing relocation. One partner is here, the other partner is, I don't know, in Seattle. Guess what? You can look at the home together because you can both start looking at
because one can look at it virtually.
Right, and the other one can walk them around it because, hey, I went to see this home today. Let me talk you through what this home looks like. So it's kind of the whole thing in terms of the website, the photography, the video, the 3D tour. All of that allows the person to look at it virtually. And I guess that's where the term virtual assets come from.
Yep. So thank you for asking that, Celia. We should have explained that probably a little bit better before.
Next time, we'll do it next time. One thing we can do with this is
I love this. This is the dollhouse view. It really helps people work out.
There we go. You can work out what's over what. This is showing all the different floors. You can see the basement there. It looks like the master bedroom was an extension at some point,
Yep.
because there's nothing above it and nothing below it. You can get a sense of what that home actually looks like. Say the juxtaposition of different aspects of the home is important to many people in terms of what's on top of what. So this allows you to do that. You can also look at a floor plan. Let me just bring this down to just one floor instead of all floors. I'll do floor 2. There we go. That's the main living area. You can see the floor plan that you usually see as a schematic. We have that as well, as it turns out, but this allows you to see the floor plan with furniture actually in it. So that's kind of key. So that's what we mean by the 3D tour, and that's kind of very, very important in today's market. Let me, if you'll excuse me, scooting to the top. So having done, just like I mentioned then, having done the photography and the video and the 3D tour and everything else, we now need to present this home, all of those products, if you will, to the user in easy to consume way. And so here, this was a home, 45 Candia Street in Arlington. Guess what? We created a website called 45candia.com. That's where you can find all of the information about this home, excuse me. So here we are. There's the price, and there's the basic features, lots of information about the home, and then a set of narrative as well as photographs that you can kind of page through as you kind of walk through the home. Here we are in that main living area again, different aspects of that main living area. And so you're kind of walking the user, leading the user, or the buyer in this case, through the home, as you'd expect them to go through, as if perhaps they were at the open house. So as well as the photography and then all the narrative, what we'll finish off with then, of course, is that 3D tour. So they can find that there, and then video. And the video I showed you previously, this is actually that video that they can look at. We also did top 5 reasons you'll love this home. That's there as well. So everything's there. Here's that virtual brochure that Danny talked about. You can page through it. You can take a close look at it. There's, for example, let me just step back. There's the more traditional schematic of a floor plan. So we have that as well. Some photography of the home, as well as information about the Arlington market. This came on in February, because we just have some data for January here. And where is the home in relation to the schools and the main infrastructure of the town? So that's there. And then we finish off with maps to show the home in relation to the schools, and the home in relation to, ever important in Arlington, the public transport. So that's all there in that main website. So we're going to Lowell Street. Sorry, I didn't mean to hit that one then. I meant to do that. There we go. I'm on the other screen. I'm scooting ahead. So let me go back to the slide deck and show you kind of where we are. We've done everything in terms of bringing creating all those virtual assets. It's a horrible word. I just don't have another one. But all of that stuff. Now, having done that, guess what?
Online stuff.
There we go. Virtual stuff. Yeah, it still doesn't sound good.
Online is,
virtual and online. Now, key thing is this. You've done all that work. We've done the preparation. We've done the staging. We've done the marketing. Now we need to get it out there. And so the first mechanism we use is really broad. Get it broadly out to potential buyers through social media. Geographically, we don't want to put an advert for your home in Arizona, but we kind of do some targeting, but we're still going rather broad. The key thing with putting this out on social media, of course, is you still have to have great photography. Excuse me. If you don't have great photography, guess what? It's going to scoop past on their newsfeed. They're never even going to look at it. So you kind of need to have all the layers in place before you can push it out on social media. Guess what? When they hit on, in this case, we have a coming soon, a just listed, a home of the week. When they click on that advert, it takes them through to, guess what? The website. So they can get a lot more information on that home. So, we're all kind of bringing everybody back to, here's all the information about their home. So the first strategy is really to be broad. in terms of social media. And then you need to go targeted, because we have lists of potential buyers who've come to open houses in the past, who've talked to us, who've interacted with us. We know what they're looking for, which town, what price point, and guess what? If you're bringing a $700,000 home on the market, we have a list of ready-made buyers who were interested in homes in Arlington at $700,000, and so we now need to kind of target those potential buyers and say, guess what? You are interested, or we're interested in a house in Arlington at 700. We've got one coming on the market very, very soon. Just listed it, whatever that may be. So broad with social media, as well as, and I should add, not just social media. It clearly goes out, but so does everybody else's, to Zillow and Redfin and Realtor.com and all of those real estate portals. But in terms of the advertising that we do, we spread it broad with social media, as well as very targeted in terms of buyers that we've interacted with in the past, to actually kind of show them what the home is, to show them that home.
Yep.
So that's the marketing.
Okay.
Over to you, Danny.
Over to me.
Over to you.
Well, just briefly, because we'll go back to Marcus.
Oh, we do. Yes, we do. Finally.
So one of the other key components is excellence through teamwork. So what does that mean? I mean, excellence through teamwork. What do we mean? We mean that our client, our seller, is the center of our universe. Really, the client is the center of our universe. We have the agent who is working tightly with the seller. We have our listing coordinator working tightly with the seller. We have our closing coordinator. Once the home is under agreement, she'll shepherd it through to closing, as well as all of these are done with the agent involved as well. But the preparation phase, we're all working with the seller. The staging phase, we're working with the seller. The marketing phase, we're working with the seller, because our goal is to sell your home for the most amount of money in the least amount of time with zero hassle or stress, because that's what creates experiences. We want you to tell your friends, your colleagues, your neighbors, all of that it was a great experience working with us, because that's, we want to develop relationships for life, basically. So we're always going to do the right thing by you. Always, 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 because our core values are, and this is not us just saying that they're our core values. This is who we are. Integrity, ethical behavior. We will not do anything wrong. We will just not. It's not in our DNA, I guess. Education, not selling. We're not going to hard sell you. We're our philosophy, and this is why we do these seminars, is to just educate you about the process, educate you about what selling involves, and selling a home involves, but we're not going to do a hard sell. It's all about education, and then exceptional customer service. It's important to use a professional, not Aunt Mary. You want someone who does it day in, day out to get you the highest price. And there's a term in the industry called a 3Ps agent. And what a 3Ps agent is someone that will put a sign out front, they'll put it in MLS, and then they pray. That's not the way to get you the highest price for a home. And it's not us just saying this. This is the National Association of Realtors commissioned an independent study about a year ago as to what the threats to the real estate industry were. And the number one threat was that masses of marginal agents destroy the reputation. The real estate industry is saddled with a large number of part-time, untrained, unethical, and/or incompetent agents. This knowledge gap threatens the credibility of the industry. This is an independent report. It's really, really important. So the agents in our team, we've got Marcus and myself, Rachel, Wenjen, Corinne, Yuki, Andrew. We do have an eighth agent. We should get her in here as well. I need to update that. Anyway, on to you again.
On to me again, finally. So I want to touch briefly on what buying in 2020 is like. What I would say is that we do, guess what, buyer seminars as well as these kind of broader seminars where we talk in detail about buying in 2020. We usually do them on a Thursday. We're not doing one tomorrow, but we are doing one next Thursday. So not tomorrow, which will be the 6th, but the Thursday after. Corinne's going to do it then. 13th. Thursday the 13th, and Corinne's going to do it. We're going to talk, and we talk exclusively about buying and what buying in 2020 involves and is like. So the when's pretty straightforward. I mean, we've shown this graph before. We're really in that phase now where buyer confidence has returned. Whether it will continue through 2021, open question, of course, but certainly where we are today, very much in that buyer confidence has returned. Doing most of your searching, initial searching anyway, online, then private showings. And as we've kind of talked a lot, open houses are still kind of an open question for us in terms of how successful they are, unless you'd like to queue up like you do at Disneyland, I guess, which is what it comes down to at the end of the day. But most people, private showings. So virtual initially, these are the 5 homes I want to see. Right, let's organize private showings for those. So that's kind of how you get in. So in terms of how you do that, clearly not business as usual in terms of showings, that's for sure. Masks, in some cases gloves required, so it's a little bit strange. Few open houses, we've kind of gone through that a little bit in terms of that. Not business as usual though, but we're kind of working on it. Private showings very much the preferred method. Keep clear to kind of look at those homes before you actually do that. Be prepared though for some strange situations, scary perhaps in some cases. In fact, we have stories about one of the agents in the team, 2 stories about one of the agents in the team actually. One of them going to an open house and it being a free-for-all. So there was an awful lot of people in the open house. That, clearly some people are okay with that, I guess. Many people clearly are not. Another situation where it was a private showing, anticipated that it was going to be vacant when they walked in or nobody in there. They walked in and the whole family was there. All the bedrooms were all, people were in there playing games, video games.
And they left straight away.
Yep, and then they walked right out the door. But be prepared for that. Kind of go in with, I would say, scary situations, go in flexible. Sense of humor, whichever it is, you may find some things which afterwards you will laugh about, but at the time you think, I'm not so comfortable with this right now.
Unfortunately, that's a situation where the listing agent hasn't prepped their sellers
with
what's expected.
That is the key.
How to get the highest price for the home, because clearly having buyers go in and there's people in the house.
That was kind of, some people may be okay with that. The vast majority of buyers clearly, are not. And so, they'll walk out. So kind of go in, be somewhat flexible in this environment. We definitely, in terms of our organization, are trying to make this as seamless as possible for buyers. So it's very easy to show, over that extended weekend. But that's not always the case with all listing agents. Inspections, we've been through the gamut with inspections about what inspectors will and will not do. We had one that said they wouldn't go into a home unless it had been vacant for 2 weeks. We've been all over the place. The thing which for me what worries me the most is when you're not allowed to go around with the inspector, because the inspection is clearly designed to find flaws with the house, that by its very nature. But there's also a lot of other information that you gather while you're going around. I always use the example of how do you change the filter in the air conditioning system. Specifically important for first-time home buyers who haven't actually been, in many cases, looking at the systems within a house, which aren't necessarily complex, they're just unknown at this point. So it does worry me that where you just get photos and a video, perhaps, maybe a phone consultation, you're going to lose the nuances of that inspection. And inevitably, you're going to focus on the issues that the inspector found. Whereas if you'd actually be going around the home with the inspector, he would have said, yes, the boiler system is 20 years old, but that's quite normal. The report might say the boiler system is 20 years old. You get much more nuanced and a much better feel for if this is a home that you're comfortable buying, if you're there with the inspector. But I'm hoping that's the one that I do hope we kind of get back to as quickly as we can. because I think there's a lot to be said for an inspection whereby you're there with the inspector. In terms of financing, I mentioned before that banks, beginning to tighten those lending requirements a little bit. They're looking at 2021, and beyond. That's where they are right now, as well as delays because of they just simply, one, they're overworked, but secondly, clearly not everybody's actually in the office. Overworked with the refis, but also not everybody's in the office. So there are, often we've seen delays last minute to get the mortgage commitment, maybe a week late to get the mortgage commitment in some cases. Two appraisals, quite common. The reason we mentioned before appraisals as well in terms of potential for lower appraisals, many of the appraisals that certainly have been done, more and more will not be, but many would so-called drive-by appraisals, where they merely drove by, or even if didn't even do that, they did it from the desk. And the challenge with that is that they don't talk to the listing agent, they don't understand the competition in the town. Appraisers aren't necessarily from the town, they don't know what's going on in the town. And there was, as we said, a couple of months ago, the potential for lower appraisals. And actually that's played out, where we have had a couple of situations, 2 or 3 situations this year. 3, I think. Appraisals this year that came in somewhat lower. They're not a lot lower, but they're lower.
Not for mine.
Not for yours, no, of course. Why would they? But I mean, the problem is, is a real one for a buyer in that, you're not necessarily buying our house. If only they would.
Yeah.
But you're buying somebody else's, another listing agent. And, if they haven't been able to talk to the appraiser, there is that potential for lower appraisal. So just be cognizant of that, aware of that. As you're putting in an offer, perhaps that offer is somewhat, higher than the current list price. There is the potential. We've certainly seen it this year, more this year than we've seen, for at least the last 5 years, I would say, where some of those appraisals are coming in just that little bit lower. They're not a lot lower, but they are coming in just that little bit lower. That's key.
We should show people our new app, because we released an app about 2 weeks ago. Okay.
Sorry about that. It didn't break.
Dropped
There we go.
plastic bottle off the edge.
That was really noisy for a plastic bottle.
We released an app about two weeks ago, and one of the reasons that we did this was because we want to be able to communicate.
Show it, right, shouldn't we?
Yeah, we want to be able to communicate easily and communicate effectively to our sellers when they're bringing a home on the market. And so one of the ways of doing that is with a listing dashboard. And we also do buying dashboards as well. But the listing dashboard has all of the 3 different phases of a home coming on the market, getting the pre-listing phase,
Why don't we show one, actually?
Yeah, okay.
Why don't we just show and you can talk it through then.
Okay.
Let's go for the listing side. Coolidge? Coolidge was in Arlington?
Yeah,
why
go
not?
to Coolidge.
There we go.
So what this listing dashboard is, I can't see it.
Pre-listing.
Okay, so pre-listing, it's got all the dates that things are going to be happening by. But the key one is in the on-market phase. So the on-market phase is important because remember we were saying that there was a direct correlation between the views of the virtual assets, the number of private showings and offers. So we've pretty well got it down pat now that if we get 40 plus viewings of the 3D tour for the first couple of days, that pretty well correlates with about 20 plus private showings during the 4 or 5 days that the home's on the market. And if we get 20 plus private showings on the home, then we'll get 2 or more offers on the home on the Tuesday. Now, 40 Coolidge, we had, how many were?
126 on the first day, 120 on the second day. And then it kind of dropped down as it normally does.
And we had something like 50 odd private showings, and we had 19 offers on the home. So that's what and this is all real-time information. You're able to see the day the home comes on the market, you're able to see what activity is happening on your home just by the views of the 3D tour. And we've got click down and show, we've also got all of the other digital assets,
Floor plan views,
the views of those,
video views,
yep,
and then finally the views of the brochure.
Yeah, so that really gives you a good understanding of what the buyers are thinking and how important it is. And then once we get into the accepted offer phase, this is telling you, this is not cataloging, as things are happening to take your home from under agreement through to closing. We'll let you know what dates are happening, when buyer visits are, all of these sorts of things with that, with your home, and it keeps you up to date with what's going on.
So that was the list side. We also have the buy side as well. A little bit simpler, but the same idea in that there's only one phase, and that is the accepted offer phase. And as you can see here, there's all the dates for this home, actually in terms of when the accepted offer was, who the attorney is, when the closing date is, and then some status information that's been added. For example, the radon information, what the canister numbers were, so information, a way to ensure that even though we email this back and forth between the client and ourselves, this is a single place that you can kind of look and go, oh, okay, that's where it is, instead of hunting through your emails. And
we should point out that the only people who get to see your transaction, apart from us showing it here, the only people is you, yourselves, and your agent. So it's not that everybody's transaction is available for anyone to see. It's only your agent and only you that get to see that information. And that Marcus's transactions, I've got a whole different set of transactions that appear on my dashboard for my sellers or buyers. So it's and you'll see yours, or if you sell 3 times or buy twice, you'll see lots of them. But anyway, we just thought that was, and you can actually get to see a whole lot of other information on the app, and you get to it via the Google Play
and the App Store.
The App Store, and it's MA Prop Online. But anyway, so it's just been released. And now it's time to say thank you for watching. We really loved getting the questions and all of those sorts of things. Appreciate that, and appreciate the participation. And look, I hope everyone stays healthy and stays safe.
And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. As you did online, but as well after the fact, if you're watching this after we've actually broadcast it, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. We'll be more than willing to answer what questions you have.
So now it's time for dinner. Bye.
Bye.